We've just passed in bulk on the 1st of February, which is traditionally the signalling of spring. So we're now starting to find a lot of spring plants coming up. One of my favourites is wild garlic. Very popular amongst the middle classes doing their wild garlic pesto, but a really versatile plant, not just in its leaf-like stage, which you'll see today, but later in its flowering season. The flowers and then the seed pods are also really good ingredients to use. But today I'm going to show you in its early plant stages what it looks like and what it could be confused with potentially. There's a couple of poisonous lookalikes at this stage, and I'll show you a bit about the habitat where it grows as well. So here we have wild garlic, but the thing to be aware of is where it grows. You're also likely to find this fella, lords and ladies. Now, wild garlic is absolutely delicious. Lords and ladies is poisonous. Now, lords and ladies won't kill you, but it's not the most pleasant experience to eat. So it will cause a sort of burning, stinging sensation on your lips and your tongue, and that will persist for perhaps a couple of hours. As you can see, my thumb here is touching the wild garlic. My finger is touching the lords and ladies. The plants are growing mixed up together, so if you're not careful with your picking, if you're just grabbing handfuls of the wild garlic, you may well be picking lords and ladies at the same time. The best advice I can give is just pick one leaf at a time. Slow down, you're not in a rush, just pick one leaf at a time, and then you know that you've got the right thing. Another additional point to consider is that all things in the allium family have a clear, oniony, garlicky smell. So as long as you haven't got a cold, you should easily be able to pick up that garlic smell, so you know you've got the right thing. Wild garlic has a elongated leaf, whereas lords and ladies has backward facing lobes. However, in the early stages, before the lobes of the plant are clear, when the plant is still in its immature stage and currently sort of quite furled up there, they look very similar. So the wild garlic leaves, as they pop up, start to open out. Lords and ladies does the same thing. So the leaves of lords and ladies are also tightly furled. So in that early stage, it can be quite difficult when you're first starting out to be completely sure. But as you slow down and really take time to look, you will notice the subtle differences. The pattern of the veins on wild garlic is very, very simple. It's a straight, not particularly defined vein going up the length of the leaf. Lords and ladies has a central vein with other veins coming out from the middle. So it's more obvious, the vein pattern on there. So those differences are quite apparent once you kind of get your eye in, really. But as I say, the best advice I can give is just to take your time when you're picking, make sure you've got the right thing, and then also to double check when you get home and you're washing the plants and getting ready to use them in the kitchen. That's another good stage to also just double check that you haven't got any strays that have made their way into the foraging basket or into whatever you're using to bring your catch home. So the typical habitat that you're likely to find wild garlic is open woodland, deciduous woodland, so broadleaf trees, and it's often an indicator of ancient woodland. So there may not be lots of trees around, but there will have been in the past. So an area like this where there's a reasonable amount of sunlight getting in, there's also a bit of shade cast from the trees, is perfect habitat. When you're harvesting wild garlic, it's important to not overpick from any one patch. So there is a real abundance of leaves and it's tempting sometimes to grab it by the fistful. But by just taking one leaf at a time, moving on to another plant and taking a leaf from there, and really only taking a maximum of the third of the leaves from a plant. It's the most sustainable way that you can be foraging for this plant. The bulb of it is a single garlic clove. So we're used to buying garlic in the shops, multiple cloves within the bulb. If you uproot this plant, you'll find a single clove attached. But it's very important that you're only harvesting the aerial parts of the plant that are above ground. So in the early stages, that's the leaf. Later on, it will be the unopened flower buds, then the open flowers, and finally the seeds. So only harvesting the parts of the plants that are above ground. By doing that, the plant will be able to reproduce and continue growing for years to come. If you uproot the plant, you've killed it, and there won't be any more wild garlic in that patch if you took too much. So it's also illegal to uproot any plant in the wild without express permission from the landowner. The 1981 Countryside Act has that as one of its points of law.